Sub-Saharan African economy without private property rights, a bondage. Private property right is the right of an individual or group to own, control, transfer, or trade ownership of their means of production, like land, mineral resources, machines, labor, or intellectual property, without direct government intrusion. It is a major element that separates most free and prosperous nations from dictatorial and poor nations. The root of modern private property rights can be traced to 1608, when Captain John Smith led the British colony in Virginia of the present-day America. After the Europeans migrated to occupy the vast American continent, they had a collective system where everyone owned the land together and all were entitled to the harvest. With this entitlement, some people became smart to work less and eat more, which made the food to finish faster and brought widespread hunger. So Captain John Smith reallocated the land for each person to permanently own, work, or trade his land and its produce as he wished. He instituted this private property right, saying, "Here, every man may be master and owner of his own labor and land. If he has nothing but his hands, he may, by industry, quickly grow rich." This recognition of private property stroke land was a restart moment for America. It inspired everybody to work hard on their lands since they now privately own the land and everything in it, not any state, local, or federal government. With this right, many people were able to take bold industrial initiatives, study deeper, and got proper loans, investments, and workers to create more products and services. In producing more, they had to compete or support others to be able to produce and trade more of their products and services, while government focused on regulations, tax, and public infrastructure. This idea of private property spread to other areas of American life for people to discover, develop, protect, and trade their private property in form of knowledge, land, buildings, products, or services. It planted the seed of liberty that made America the richest, freest, and strongest nation on earth, and it has been the key element in the success of most multiculturally developed nations. In a private property system, national economy can be compared to a pot of soup that is placed on a set of burning firewood. Usually, a pot contains various ingredients like melon, seasonings, vegetable, fish, meat, oil, and water. As the burning firewood hits the pot, the ingredients absorb the water, the soup gets thicker, and the cook keeps adding water to mix the ingredients and balance the texture of the soup. If the cook adds too much water, the soup becomes too watery, then he needs to add more firewood to increase the heat so that the heat can enable the ingredients to absorb the excess water. In reality, the meat, fish, and all animal produce represent mineral resources. The vegetable represents all agricultural produce. The seasonings represent labor, water represents money, and the firewood represents knowledge from research. The cook is a democratic government that owns and controls the water, while the firewood and ingredients are private properties belonging to private citizens. As new knowledge grows for people to grow their skills and refine their mineral and agricultural resources, the economy becomes better and their money becomes more valuable. If a democratic government prints too much money that causes inflation, it simply needs to support more research and industries for people to develop more skills, goods, and services from their mineral and agricultural resources. The opposite of private property system is public property system, in which governments seize almost all lands as public property and appoints people to control them. Since all products for living and working come from land, people in such societies cannot use their private land to get loans, investments, labor, and other elements to produce what they want, except they are allowed to make what government wants. This collectivist system was what European powers that invaded to civilize Africa imposed as democracy using the land expropriation law on many dissimilar communities. And while living at independence, they vested this land law in the new colonial governments they created to restrict Africans from owning and using their natural resources for industries that could compete with the colonial industries, but instead to extract and export the resources. So, in underdeveloped societies where government controls all lands to export its resources, national economy is like a large pot of soup in which the ingredients are sealed. The sealed ingredients are then extracted and sold to foreigners instead of being allowed to manifest their nutrient or flavor in the pot. And in exchange for the extracted ingredients, the outsiders supply few spoons of cooked soup to the pot and enable the cooks to keep adding water to fill the pot. Thus, the soup in the pot is always watery and tasteless, and the people do not get much value from the soup. This watery soup represents the economic situation in most African countries whose governments were created to extract and export the resources that people need to create industrial wealth. Due to distractions in the system, people keep voting and hoping that some politician will redeem them by importing and distributing more foreign products and services as soup, instead of reforming the colonial system for them to own and use their natural resources to create their own products. So, like the pre-private property America, Africa's socio-economic condition will not improve until the people convene restart national conferences to change the colonially made collectivist system to private property system for people to compete based on their productivity and social responsibility.